Good morning. Happy Sunday morning. Bright and early. We'll see who we can all get tuned in this morning. I know our guest Clint is online, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in Clint.
Hey Casey, how are you doing this morning?
You good, man? There's a big reason why we scheduled these for 7 a.m. Sunday morning. I figured, I took polls before to try to figure out what time works. There's really no time that works during the week, but figured who is doing something 7 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm going to let Clint introduce himself in a second, but if you guys didn't see the heading, the subject today is going to be post-coronavirus tenant evictions. So this is kind of a neat subject, I think. We're going to kind of go over some of our experiences. We're going to, share like some unpleasant things about being a landlord, but also things you can learn and things you can avoid some of our mistakes, and kind of wrap that up at the end and kind of definitely share our learnings and hopefully help other people and maybe make other people feel more comfortable about maybe pulling the trigger on that first deal or that first rental property, to where we can get them past, hey, because everybody hears evictions, they're like, oh, I don't want any part of real estate. I don't want to deal with kicking somebody out, but it's part of the business. And if you do it correctly, you can avoid a lot of the headaches that Clint and I are going to talk about today. And basically, what is your real estate why, if you don't mind sharing? Why did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I've been coaching here in the Metroplex North Dallas and Fort Worth area for a few years now. A few years ago, I was wrapping up a rather large contract in Dallas, and I wanted to offset that income with an investment. I own it currently as an opportunity to learn more about real estate investing with a partner, with my wife, to see if it's something that she enjoys doing, if she's comfortable with the risk involved, but also just something that we can kind of tackle together as a team.
I like it, man. It's a good why, and it's a different why. I think a lot of people might be financial freedom. It might be, it's just a lot of, I don't know. I like your answer. It's not the prototypical, it's not the prototypical one. You just liked it for the experience and,
You're
and
right.
what it's all about. And
Exactly.
anyway, we'll let Clint kind of tell us his latest eviction story, and he's going to kind of tell everything that happened and how he kind of rebounded from it. And then I'm sure throughout the story he'll highlight little things that he learned that he will definitely do different next time.
The most recent tenants that we had to run through the eviction process, they had a 1-year lease that we renewed once. The number one thing that bothered me with these tenants is their communication, or rather lack thereof. So the fact that we couldn't get a hold of them, it would be a week before we even heard from them. And then over the first year lease, we became more and more aware that their communication, whenever they did respond, may or may not have been the most forthcoming and, from my perspective, accurate. That kind of distrust really set me off in terms of the overall relationship. The reason why we went through with an eviction is because during the second year, for one, they basically stopped paying their rent at the start of this year.
So a lot of signs, So basically, a lot of signs you were seeing before this, and
Yes,
were pointing this
specifically
direction,
in
right?
terms of the actual eviction hearing, we spoke on the amount of pets that they had. They had 4 dogs, and they were only supposed to have one that we approved. And also, there was supposed to be no smoking or vaping of any kind on the premise. So even outside, back porch, things like that. We could tell whenever we changed the air filter. Obviously, the quality of the air filter was evidence of smoking in the house. Even today, after numerous cleanings, you can still smell, faint smoke. For me, the overall thing that just really ate at me was just how they treated my property manager in terms of communicating poorly, and, in my opinion, just not being truthful with her. So.
Yeah. Any other insights you want to add to what you would do differently and what you now know? You've highlighted a couple of them as far as just screening your tenant, but
Moving forward, if we don't trust tenants, then we won't be renewing leases. And if there's any case for eviction where they're breaking clauses that they've agreed to and legally contracted to abide by, then we're going to be moving forward in that direction of eviction much, much sooner.
any other learnings you didn't cover or wanted to share with somebody else? Again, looking at this, because it's a big intent of this episode today is like people learn from our mistakes, and then so they can deal with eviction or prevent evictions, and if they do have to go through it in a efficient manner.
I wish that I would have sat down and kind of told my team, hey, this is something that I'm willing to do. These are the kind of things that I will step in if need be. It was a lot of fun working with my team the past couple of weeks
Really quick,
because,
Clint,
yeah,
tell them your team. So yeah, you refer to your team a lot. So yeah, tell what kind of team did you set up?
yeah. So my team that I've set up, obviously me and my wife, we don't do anything without each other's either confidence and approval. We have a property manager on site who has relationships with individuals capable of working in the home in terms of um, anything from maintenance or renovation, things like that. And also her connections, in my opinion, it kind of branches as secondary. She has a lot of contacts in the real estate industry in the market that we're investing in. So, in my opinion, the team that I've chosen is my wife and our property manager. And she goes out and she makes sure that any holes that we filled, they're able to be filled. And that's why I have complete confidence in her ability to manage the property.
I'll go ahead and jump into yeah, kind of a quick uh yeah, a quick eviction story that's happened to us in the last it's going on almost yeah, almost 9 months, almost a year. Um, Not as much of a happy ending as Clint, or my ending is still to be determined. So I think it's yeah, we'll see. We'll maybe update you guys on a later date. But yeah, we just had a tenant that was yeah, I just started the letter. I mean, and I'll kind of maybe highlight my mistakes as I go through, but um, she started getting, she was like late on rent several months ago, like looking back at like September, October of last year. She started to be late on rent, and for whatever reason it was. And yeah, I mean, typically I've trained myself to have it built into leases. If after the fifth day, if they're late on rent, you charge them a late fee. And I remember just reading books, they said, don't stick to that, charge people. You have to do it. It's, if all else, you're looking out for them, because if you don't charge them, they don't build those habits. And you just, it's something you got to do. And I definitely let it slip, and before you know it, just, it's crazy how all of a sudden it just spirals, and then you're just trying to get them to pay any rent. And then yeah, anyway, just kind of spiraled into month after month. She was going to catch it up, she was going to catch it up then, all these every excuse you can hear in the book. So ultimately finally, and then you get to that point, though it's weird, you get to that threshold where you're like, she owes me, and she says she can catch it up and get it to me, or that money, there's that carrot that, like, if I give her some time, I can actually recoup that, or do I cut my losses and move on and somehow try to get her out and never recoup that money, or try to recoup it, and either way, not easily. So you're kind of fighting that in your head the whole time. And anyway, so I think that's probably in my mind. That's why I let it continue to happen a little longer, because you thought that she was actually gonna catch it up. She had these reasons that she was late and was gonna catch it up, but ultimately, finally, I don't know what point crossed that threshold. It's like, I can't do this anymore. Got to move
Right.
on. Got to cut your losses. And yeah, and then right when I was getting moving forward, trying to figure out actually how to file the eviction, because I manage our property from afar, and I was trying to figure out how the best efficient way to do that and cost effective way to do it. And then that's when coronavirus hit, and they shut down all the eviction courts. And yeah, finally though, I did get things moving, and I wanted to share that too today. This is, so I was able to find an online website through the state of Texas, but they actually will file your evictions, and you can upload the lease, you can upload any documentation. It's basically kind of a one-stop online shop to file your eviction, because again, I'm trying to do this from afar, at least get the eviction process started. So I'm kind of in the middle of that. I actually had a one file that didn't upload, so it's delayed it. So it's very inefficient right now, but I've kind of thought of it to myself as a learning experience. Like, if I can learn how to do this and use this service, it can help me save on legal fees and ultimately get the ball moving faster. So I'll definitely report back on how the system works. But yeah, it looks like a way that you can file the eviction, and then yeah, you could figure out if you want to show up in person for the court date, or if you want to have someone show up on your behalf. But looks like you can do a lot of the front end work through this website to get the trial set, and they'll actually serve the tenants um, the, I guess, when they need to show up for their court hearing and all that different stuff. And if all else, that hopefully usually gets people moving. I know there's just a lot of tenants that will like, all right, I'm gonna wait until you actually do something, and they're trying to, they're calling their bluff basically. So anyway, I want to probably report back in a couple months on that. I'll share the link for this website that I did go on. I think it cost only about less than $100 to get everything filed. Anyway, that's my quick story. If you guys didn't hear the highlights of what I would have learned, the biggest thing I missed was the front end, and it was the screening. And if you guys screen your tenants and are very diligent about who you get in, you can't prevent all these, but you could prevent a lot. And just from like calling their references to calling their past landlords to verifying things, it's better to go a couple months without a renter than to find the wrong one. So basically, be patient when you're looking for tenants. Wait till you find somebody who has good references, is a good fit, and do not take shortcuts and do not make assumptions when you're going through basically your screening process. We'll just kind of wrap it up though with this discussion. I'm going to share my kind of top three, and then I'll let Clint think of his top three learnings from evictions. So we've kind of talked about them a lot through this, but if you have to hear this, let's say my top three are be very diligent on your screening process. Take your time. Do not rush through that. It's just not worth it. No matter what's going on in your life, like, don't rush through it. If you gotta or if you have to pay somebody to help you, don't rush through it, because it can cost you a lot of money. It might take you some time, short time or money, like in the beginning, but it'll save you money in the long run. So that'd be the first one. Second one would be do not pull the trigger on somebody unless you feel comfortable, and don't get into a rush just to get your vacancy filled. Like, make sure you find the right person. Again, losing a month of rent is way better than losing like 6 months from an eviction, or what all the costs from an eviction. And the third one, breaking up, hopefully my screen's going slow, but third one would be when tenants are late, charge them late fees. And I'm guessing this is one of Clint's, but and act like you need to act fast. If people aren't paying the rent, like I know a lot of best practices I've read is, if they're late on the 5th, they get a late fee. If they're late on the 10th, you start the eviction process. Like, you get it rolling and don't wait, and no exceptions. Honestly, it'll avoid the whole headache that I did where I let it last, like just nip in the butt right away. So those are my top three. What do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I like those a lot, and that's what I really appreciate, the opportunity that you're providing with your circle of investors, is the value of your experience. For me, I'm still learning, and I don't know if it's valuable to others, but three things that I'm going to remind myself moving forward is to know my team and to know my role. As I mentioned in the experience, knowing the role that I want to play, knowing the role that I need to play. And those might be different, but being flexible based on the environment you're in is important. Number two, in my opinion, is more, I'm sure experts and people that have been doing it for years already know, but make sure that you have the cash reserves to cover vacancy. Even if the property isn't vacant. That's the interesting thing. I never planned on my property to not have that revenue coming in for 6 months. And when you buy a property, I know that's a part of the process in terms of financing a property, is having cash reserves. But it's very important for me to, continue looking at my models with a shorter term note, a higher PD payment, making sure that if my cash flows don't include cash reserves building up for potential vacancy, whether it's the month turnaround from renter to renter or longer, it's important to have those figures, at least just be aware of them.
Hopefully it encourages some other people that are thinking about real estate or buying their first house that you should go for it, and you can learn it as you go, and doesn't make you any less of a investor or any less of, like, honestly, it makes you more. It makes you courageous to go for it. So
Yeah.
open.
And if you don't mind me adding on that, I would say that if you're interested in real estate or passionate about real estate, I would say that the industry is large enough to accommodate individuals who are just passionate and excited about it, but may not be property owners. One thing that I've found in the few years, and especially connecting with you, is if you enjoy these things and you enjoy connecting, learning, and providing value, find your role in the industry, whatever that might be. Look for your niche, look for your opportunity, and if you can't buy a house yourself, don't let it stop you from enjoying connecting with other people who are passionate about the industry, because it's a really rewarding one.